Have you ever pondered the future of our planet, particularly in the face of rising sea levels? Before we go any further, please subscribe, click the notification bell, and donate to help the oceans. With your help, we can raise awareness and protect our precious oceans. Together we can make a difference. It's more than just a thought experiment, it's a pressing question, a reality that scientists across the globe are grappling with. Climate change, that much discussed and often disputed term, is real. And it's happening right now. The consensus among scientists is overwhelming. 97% of climate experts agree that humans are causing global warming. But what does that have to do with oceans? A lot, as it turns out. You see, the warming of our planet doesn't just mean hotter summers or milder winters, it also means melting ice caps and glaciers. As the polar ice caps melt, all that water has to go somewhere, and it ends up in our oceans, causing sea levels to rise. But that's not all, there's also something called thermal expansion. It's a simple concept, really. When water heats up, it expands. So, as our planet warms, so does the water in our oceans. And as it heats up, it takes up more space, causing sea levels to rise even further. We're not talking about minor increases either. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, if we continue on our current path, we could see sea levels rise by as much as several feet by the end of this century. This would be enough to submerge many of our coastal cities, including Miami and New York in the USA, Venice in Europe, Alexandria in the Middle East, Shanghai in Asia, and Sydney in Australia. The future, it seems, could very well be underwater. But it's not just about the places and the cities we could lose, it's about the people who call those places home. Millions of people across the globe could be displaced, forced to relocate to higher ground. Given these circumstances, one wonders how high the sea levels might rise in the future. It's a question we can't afford to ignore, because the future of our planet and the future of humanity may very well depend on the answer. Imagine, if you will, a world where the sea level has risen by 6 feet. This isn't a dystopian fantasy, but a very real possibility our planet could face in the next half-century. The relentless march of climate change and ice melt isn't just a threat to polar bears and penguins, it's a looming catastrophe for human civilization as we know it. Let's put this in perspective. A 6-foot rise in sea levels would mean the end of many of the world's coastal cities as we know them. Picture Miami, Shanghai, or Amsterdam submerged, their vibrant skylines and bustling streets lost beneath the waves. In the United States alone, more than 13 million people could be displaced. The economic implications are staggering. The world economy is deeply intertwined with these coastal metropolises. They are hubs of industry, finance, tourism, and culture. If they were to be swallowed by the sea, we would lose not just homes and lives, but countless jobs, and a significant portion of the global GDP. But it's not just about money, it's about our shared heritage, our history. Many of the world's most iconic landmarks would be lost. The Statue of Liberty, the Sydney Opera House, the Tower of London. These are not just buildings, they are symbols of our collective identity, testaments to human achievement. And let's not forget about the environmental impact. Coastal ecosystems already under threat would be decimated. This could lead to the extinction of countless species and the disruption of food chains with unpredictable consequences. The displacement of millions of people would also create an unprecedented humanitarian crisis. Where will these climate refugees go? How will they rebuild their lives? These are questions we must start asking now if we are to stand any chance of mitigating the worst effects of sea level rise. If these statistics don't send a chill down your spine, then what will? The tides of change are rising and we must rise to meet them. This is not a distant threat, but a clear and present danger. The time to act is now. The clock is ticking and the hourglass of our time is draining with each passing moment. This isn't a line from a dramatic movie, but a stark reflection of our current reality. Scientists, those tireless sentinels of truth, have been sounding the alarm bells for years now. Their data paints a picture that's as clear as it is alarming. The world's oceans are rising and they're doing so at an escalating pace. The ice caps are melting faster than anyone had predicted, and the sea levels are responding in kind. In the last century, the global sea level rose by roughly 8 to 9 inches. However, the rate of rise in the last 2 decades has nearly doubled that of the previous 80 years. This isn't a slow crawl towards disaster, it's a sprint. By the middle of this century, just about 30 years from now, scientists predict that sea levels could rise by 1 to 4 feet. That's assuming we continue on our current path, of course, but if we change nothing, if we continue to ignore the warning signs, the worst-case scenario sees our oceans rising by an astonishing 8 feet by the end of the century. These aren't just numbers on a page, they're a countdown to a future where our coastal cities could be underwater, where millions of people could be displaced, where the world as we know it could be irrevocably changed. Each tick of the clock, each grain of sand slipping through the hourglass brings us one step closer to this future. But it's not a future set in stone, it's a future that we can still change if we choose to act. The question now isn't if these changes will happen, but when. And more importantly, what are we going to do about it? Time is slipping away, but it's not gone yet. We still have the power to change the course of our future. We just need to decide if we're willing to take the necessary steps before the last grain of sand falls and our time runs out. How does a world where humans are forced to relocate to the mountains sound? Imagine a world where the lush valleys and vibrant cities we've known and loved are submerged beneath the ever-rising tides. This is not a scene from an apocalyptic movie, but a potential future we might face in the next 50 years due to climate change and ice melting. And where would we go? The mountains. So let's delve into this mountain exodus. The idea of mass migrations to higher ground isn't just a logistical challenge, it's a complete transformation of how we live, work, and interact with our environment. Think about it. Our social fabric could be torn apart as communities are uprooted and forced to adapt to new, harsher environments. There's the economic impact as well. The cost of abandoning low-lying areas, rebuilding infrastructure, and creating new settlements could run into the trillions. But it's not just about the money, it's about the people, their lives and their livelihoods. The farmers, who've tilled the soil of the plains for generations. The fishermen, who've relied on the sea's bounty. The urban dwellers accustomed to the conveniences of city life. All would be forced to change their ways, their traditions, their entire way of life. And let's not forget the political implications. As people move, borders may need to be redefined, causing potential disputes and conflicts. Governments would need to grapple with the enormous task of managing these migrations, ensuring fair access to resources, and maintaining peace and order. The mountain exodus isn't just a physical move, it's a shift in our culture, our economies, and our political systems. It's an upheaval that would test our resilience, our adaptability, and our humanity. But remember, this is a potential future, not a foregone conclusion. We still have the power to change our course, to slow the tide, and to create a future where our world isn't 85% covered in seawater. The mountain exodus isn't a dystopian novel plot, it's a potential reality. With the future of our planet hanging in the balance, what can humanity do? One might say we've painted ourselves into a precarious corner, but it's also in our nature to innovate, to adapt, and most importantly, to survive. So where do we start? Firstly, we must focus on mitigation strategies. This means reducing, and ideally reversing, the causes of climate change. We're talking about limiting our greenhouse gas emissions, transitioning to renewable energy sources, and promoting sustainable practices in all sectors, from agriculture to industry. While these changes will not be easy, they are necessary. Secondly, we must prepare for adaptation. This means adjusting to our changing environment, which includes planning for sea level rise and the inevitable migration of populations to higher grounds. We need to build resilient communities that can withstand extreme weather events and adapt to new climate conditions. But perhaps the most crucial element of all is cooperation. This is not a problem that can be solved by one nation alone. It's a global issue that requires a global solution. International cooperation is paramount. We need to pool our resources, share our knowledge, and work together towards a common goal. And let's not forget the role of individual responsibility. Each one of us can make a difference. Whether it's by reducing our carbon footprint, supporting sustainable practices, or advocating for climate action, each step we take brings us closer to a more sustainable future. So, as the sea levels continue to rise and our cities face the risk of becoming underwater relics, we must ask ourselves, what part will we play in this unfolding story? Will we be the generation that sat back and watched? Or will we be the ones who stood up and fought for our planet? Is it too late to turn the tide, or can we still chart a course to a sustainable future? The choice, as always, is ours to make.